Works meeting to order. What's that, 7:31? No?
No.
29, okay.
What are you on, Michigan?
Our clocks are wrong.
Alan?
One more minute. Public Works.
7:30.
7:30.
All right, I'd like to call the Public Works Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Alderman Ames. Here. Alderman Catalano.
Here.
Alderman Curriali.
Here.
Alderman Jacob.
Here.
Alderman Messina.
Here.
Alderman Sorrentino.
Here.
Alderman Sismarski.
Here.
Alderman Woods.
Here.
Okay, next up, did you want to go next?
Yeah, just
Attorney Bond?
for purposes of the meeting, this is a meeting of the standing committees of the City of Wooddale. There are two committee meetings this evening. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the Illinois Open Meetings Act. In order for the committees to get to the business that they have on their agenda, we would ask everyone to keep their comments, their public comments brief in order to get to that. Specifically, any individual who wants to be recognized, there are cards over there at the table. Fill the card out, put your name on that, and identify the topic that you wish to discuss or any action you wish to have the committee take. Each individual must be recognized by the chair. All comments should be directed to the chair. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person. This is not a public hearing, it's a public meeting. There will be a total, I don't think we'll exceed that, but of 30 minutes in the aggregate for a public meeting. And if at any time the public comment interferes with the conduct of the meeting, the chair has the right to ask that individual to come to order. If they refuse to come to order, they can be removed. So again, please address in a civil tone all questions or comments to the board. And again, it's a public comment, so the board will not be answering questions. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Attorney Bond. That was work telling me that was great. Up first, an approval of minutes dated April 28th, 2022.
So moved.
Second, roll call, please. Or actually, excuse me, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Next up, reports and recommendations. First up, an approval of an agreement between the City of Wooddale and Morton Salt for the fiscal year 2023 bulk rock salt purchase in an amount not to exceed $78,915.20. I'm going to pass that on to Director Lang for some comments first, before we go to vote.
We had it first time. We got a Public Works Facility Improvement.
Oh, I missed that one. Okay. Sorry, I missed. First up, excuse me, is Public Works Facility Improvement Phase 2 bid release. Director Lang.
Thank you, Chairman. Bids were open for Phase 2 of the Public Works Facility Improvements Project this Tuesday. Those tabulations have been shared with you. FQC is currently reviewing the bids and verifying the scope, and they will have their recommendation letter ready for us early next week for discussion at next week's council meeting. So this item tonight is strictly informational.
Thank you for that update. Next up, an approval of an agreement between the City of Wooddale and Morton Salt, Inc. for the fiscal year 2023 bulk rock salt purchase in an amount not to exceed $78,915.20.
Second.
That would be my motion. We have a second. Roll call, please.
Alderman Ames.
Yes.
Alderman Catalano.
Yes.
Alderman Curriali.
Yes.
Alderman Jacob.
Yes.
Alderman Messina.
Yes.
Alderman Sorrentino.
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski.
Yes.
Alderman Woods.
Yes.
Great, and that passes. Items to be considered at future meetings. City sign program, June 9th. Second Avenue design options, June 9th. Road program, July 14th. Are there any other items anybody would like to add? Okay. Then I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second? Great. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned.
Next, I'd like to call the Planning, Zoning, and Building Committee to order. Let the minute taker reflect that the same members are present. First, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of April 28th, 2022.
Make that motion.
Second.
Any questions, corrections, or changes? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Next, report and recommendation. We're going to switch this around. We'll do the rezoning one because that's going to be quick and easy. Rezoning upon annexation from R1 to R4 and lot consolidation for 160 Pine Lane, formerly known as 5 North 510 and 5 North 514 North Pine Lane.
I'll make that motion.
Are there any questions? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Next, review and approval of the comprehensive rewrite of the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, and rezoning of certain properties with any amendments as deemed necessary. So first, I'd like to start this off by making a motion. I move that the PZB committee recommend to the City Council approval of the comprehensive rewrite of the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, Chapter 17 of the Municipal Code and rezoning of certain properties with the additional following recommended changes. 1, the proposed permitted uses applicable to proposed C3 district include the following additional permitted uses. A, manufacturing limited. B, office administrative and professional. C, warehouse. D, wholesale. E, personal storage facility. F, passenger motor vehicle repair. G, automotive tire and battery store including installation. H, recreational equipment sales, service, and rental. I, commercial radio, microwave antenna, and cell towers. J, personal wireless communication facilities. K, commercial trade schools. L, indoor athletic facility. M, product showroom. N, internet sales with warehouse. O, printing establishments. Number 2, that the proposed special use applicable for the proposed C3 district include the following additional special uses: towing service without on-site impoundment. Number 3, that the right to continue legal non-conforming use to the structure runs with the land and is transferable to subsequent property owners and lessees subject to the limitations in section 17.701 through 17.705 of the proposed UDO and other applicable discontinuance provisions of the proposed UDO. Number 4, that the minimum development area for developments in the Thorndale Interchange Overlay District, TIO District, be changed from 20 to 10 acres, and with a minimum development area subject to a request for variation through the PUD approval process. That is my motion.
Second.
Yeah, and so now we'll entertain comments. I'll go with first in, Carrie Savakis. Hopefully I said that correctly, or close? Close. Okay. No.
And just a reminder, this is not a public hearing, so witnesses, anybody who's going to the podium is simply making public comment, so
Okay.
that's the difference. Thank you.
Okay, so my name is Carrie Savickas, and I have the 229 North Central property. And this property is a little unique because it ends at the tracks, and we're on the alley too, off of, south of Irving. Okay. So what's the issue with my property is that it's being downzoned. So it's an industrial property, and now they want to make it CA2. So the couple of problems I have is I understand the idea, and I value that for Wooddale, because my family's been a part of Wooddale for 80 years. We've had businesses, built buildings, sold buildings, so we've been here a long time and lived in Wooddale. The issue that I have is we have been running a business out of that building for least 30, 40 years. And this really devalues our property by this change. Now, I understand what you want to do, which is great, but I don't see that happening for my building for at least 10 years, because I've seen other projects that Wooddale has, worked on. My issue is I did want to sell our building, and now the realtor has said that he can't because of the change in the zoning, because his buyers were specifically looking for industrial properties. Going to CA2 is a little unique for my property, which I appreciate what you're trying to do with that. I dead end at Central and the tracks. So the realtor had also mentioned to me, Carrie, even if I wanted to try to sell it commercial at this time, he said, you're not even on Irving. He said, so any developer coming in, they're going to be like, we're not getting that exposure. So those are my complaints about the change. I really don't want you to do a change on my property. I was wondering, did you have engineering study done on this? I know I'm learning, so I'm not fully aware of how this all started and everything. But did Wooddale do an engineering study to see, how this was going to work? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, this is a comment period, not a debate or a question-answer period.
okay.
So we're not going to respond to those.
Okay,
but
that's fine.
So that you get your questions on the record.
Yeah,
as much as
okay.
you can.
So that really truly is what my point was, is I personally would not like the zoning to be changed on my particular building. I was just, again, I guess this is a question, is wondering maybe if you did an overlay, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, Carl Camelucci.
Good evening. My name is Carl Camelucci. I'm a lawyer at the Taft Law Firm in Chicago. Represent Gulo International, which owns a few properties in the TIO district, among other places. And I'm going to focus my comments primarily on that. And I appreciate the chairman's motion included potential amendment to the TIO regulations that would reduce the 20-acre development requirement to 10 acres. But first of all, it's kind of hard to respond to that in real time without seeing what it says. So I think we would still encourage this committee and the council to make the proposed amendment available so that the public can, and the same thing with the changes to the permitted and special uses in the new C3, so that the people here and others can see them and understand them rather than just hear them quickly and try to understand what they mean. But in general, I want to talk a little bit about any type of requirement to have a large minimum development lot in the TIO, even 10 acres. Because although the goal of the revised UDO is good, to encourage new development and to foster larger developments, and I think everybody would like to see that, mandating the consolidation of lots into pieces of that size would actually have the reverse effect. It sounds counterintuitive, but if you play out how this would work, right now you've got people who own parcels of land that might be 5 acres, 6 acres, whatever they are, and they would have to find other people who are willing to sell their properties, buy them, and assemble them together into a larger lot before they would be able to do any new development on their lot. But there's two provisions in the code governing legal non-conforming uses that make that particularly hard. One says if you've got a lot less than 20 acres, or if this change goes through 10 acres, then you can still redevelop that lot even if it's smaller, but not if you acquire the lot next door. If you acquire the lot next door, then there's two smaller lots together. You must consolidate them. So that creates an incentive to just keep it at the smaller lot, because if you acquire the lot next door and that's not quite enough to get you to the 20-acre requirement or the 10-acre requirement, then you've eliminated the possibility of developing the first lot. So it actually creates an incentive for the existing property owners to continue their existing uses for as long as possible so that they don't lose the ability to redevelop their properties, and discourages them from selling to other people in order to assemble lots into a larger parcel. We think a much more effective strategy for encouraging the kind of development that you would like to see is to incentivize property owners to sell their properties to other people so that they can be assembled into larger lots. Say, allow them to build denser or taller in exchange for assembling those lots. That gives them a financial incentive to spend money and take risk.
Mr. Camalucci, if you could speed it up and get,
Of course.
get through the other.
Of course. The one other thing I wanted to mention is that there's a provision that's sort of hidden in a footnote in the use table, which says that all basically truck parking, but it's called freight yards, must cease 8 months after the adoption of the new UDO. And that's what we call, in land use terms, an amortization provision, which basically you can't prohibit somebody from continuing a particular use unless you give them enough time to realize a reasonable return on that use before you make them shut it down. And putting it in a footnote to this use table instead of putting it in the legal non-conforming provisions of the code, and without providing any process or explanation about how that amortization provision would work is very unusual. And the 8-month period is probably too short, and so we think that would probably be subject to challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, just for the benefit of everyone, the amendments, if they are approved by the committee, this is committee only, those will be made available before any council action will be taken. Those will be posted on the city's website.
Okay, Marshall Zubak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for allowing public comment at this meeting. Here to request some modifications to the UDO revisions. I apologize, Mr. Chairman, you went so fast, I wasn't able to write down all the ones you approved, but if we can take a look at those between now and council. This is a large undertaking that this committee and this council is eventually going to make. You're not only rezoning, but you're also rewriting the UDO at the same time. It's 286 pages. I beg you to make sure you go through this. It took me weeks to get through it all. We can't take a Washington, D.C. approach of we're going to pass it to see what's in it later. That can be catastrophic to businesses and catastrophic to property owners. Rezoning and changes to zoning codes they affect property values. There's no doubt about that. There was no testimony at the public hearing about what this is going to do to property values. I'm not here tonight asking you to vote this down. I'm just asking for reasonable changes. I know all of you, most of you personally, I know nobody has bad intentions on this. I read the minutes from the steering committee, and it seemed like there were a couple objectives, but between what happened at the steering committee and what was drafted up by the consultants, took it way to another degree. I will comment briefly on notice. I don't think notice was adequate. There's still a packed house here, but we had more people at the CDC. I don't think it's out of a lack of interest, but part of the letter that was sent by staff basically told the property owners there's not very big changes. Everything's going to basically stay the same. It's not. So that was clearly a lack of transparency. I don't think it was intentional, but I don't think the people understood what was being changed. I'll pass this out before I'm done, but we're asking for modifications to the C3 zoning as what is a permitted use and a special use. I'll provide you copies of what I'm suggesting. The table on page 121 for C3 says the minimum lot width, at one point there's a typo, it says maximum, that should be minimum, but it says the minimum lot width is 100 feet. Most of the lots over there along Potter Street are 50 feet. So by adopting this as a 100 feet requirement, you're making legal non-conforming lots to start with. Why not just have it 50 feet to begin with? You might actually get some redevelopment if that's one of your goals as stated in the comprehensive plan. On page 141, section 6, we talk about the legal non-conforming, and it says legal non-conforming can keep going, but you have to provide, you have to comply with the regulations. All the, very few of the properties along Potter Street can meet those regulations. So you need to modify that. You also need to strike in 17703 where it says you can continue illegal nonconforming subject to the regulations. That needs to be stricken.
Mr. Zubak, not to cut you short, but you're already past the 3 minutes, so if you could, I want you to speak. but
Sure.
If you could speed up the process.
Abs-
A lot of this stuff is repetitive from what you did at the CDC.
I just didn't know, I know you were at the CDC meeting, I don't know if the other ones were at the CDC meeting,
But pass it
so.
out and without getting into debate, because that's what
Absolutely.
we're here before, is that most of those things were corrected and put into my motion, so.
And again, I couldn't hear them all, I apologize, it went so fast. I didn't hear a motion with respect to giving notice of 250 feet to people on a development. That protects the city council, and that protects the property owners, that you should give notice if you're making a change within 250 feet of a development. And going forward, you can see how these use tables can be used. These use tables need to say, if you're going to change this in the future, give notice to the property owner. The last thing, and it's a big deal, it says right now, if it's not a permitted use and it's not a special use, it's prohibited. That requires then a text amendment for everybody going through. We better make sure, you better make sure those use tables are absolutely 100% accurate, and they're not. I would say strike the language as it's not a permitted use and let staff have the discretion that if somebody comes in and they don't fall exactly within the language that the consultants drafted up and we're hopefully amending, that at least you give staff the authority to fit it in what fits closest. That's what most communities do. Thank you for the limited amount of time, Mr. Chairman. If I can still approach and pass these out
If you just give them to me, I'll get them to the,
to everybody?
yeah.
Okay.
I will give them to everybody. It's not a secret, as I said, most of those things got in the motion. So, you're welcome. Thanks. Next, Anthony J. Trotto.
Good evening. Tony Trotto. I own property on Irving Park Road in Wooddale. I'm in the Town Center Business District. And I wish I could be as kind as Marshall was, but I would ask that you vote this down. What I think needs to be done is you need to engage with the businesses on Irving Park Road and find out what their needs are before you pass an ordinance like this, a massive ordinance like this. I received no notice whatsoever regarding this change or this readoption of an entire new ordinance, and neither did any other business owner in the town center business. We were just told that, well, nothing's going to happen with you. But there are significant changes that are going to occur, some of which are lots that we have now that are conforming are going to be legal non-conforming. And the other thing is your focus can't be on fixing up the people's lots that exist now. I mean, these are human beings. These are people, property owners, that own property that can be part of any rejuvenation, as you like to call it, of Irving Park Road. You don't need to be knocking down buildings and consolidating lots and wishing that big box stores would come into town. There's things you can do with the businesses as they exist. And the problem is you haven't engaged those businesses. We learned nothing about this until we looked through it. There are a couple of other kinks in the ordinance that is being proposed that I've discovered. It does take time to go through it. You completely changed the definition of abandonment, as far as I understand it. The way it looks like, it's a conclusive presumption that if you abandon the property, intent is no longer an issue. And there's case law in Illinois that says that intent always is an issue. There were other municipalities that tried to take out intent, and it was turned down. So please, I'm asking you, take your time. Don't rush into it. Give us an opportunity to engage with you and those that are writing this rewrite and see if we can come up with something better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crowe. Next, Kevin Shields.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Shields, and we own the property at 367 East Potter Street. We also operate the business that's inside of that building, Sealmaster. And when we were notified about this, we initially glanced over the letter because made it seem that there was not a big concern for us. Fortunately, we attended the first meeting, and we found out that there are some big concerns for our business. I think you've already heard about property valuation. We believe that if there are fewer allowances for what can operate in our building, it's definitely going to decrease the value of our property, which is a concern. But as a business owner, we have a bigger concern, which is the value of our business. 2008, we chose to come to Wooddale after doing some research in the area to be able to set up a distribution center. We had done some research, and Wooddale was very, very favorable for business and was a very good fit for our business. We've had a great relationship so far that I'm aware of. We've taken our business, we've grown it from $0 to $2 million, and are looking to continue to expand. My understanding is with the UDO, if we become a non-conforming entity, that we can no longer do any more investments into our facility to be able to offer expansion. As a business owner, we have no desire to operate something that's not going to grow. We're looking to grow every year. It's good for our business. It's good because we generate tax dollars for the village of Wooddale, and we want to continue to do that. We understand that our business that we operate may not be the right fit for what Wooddale's vision is, and we understand that. But I would think then if we are being told that we can't expand our business, there would be some opportunity or some financial planning that would be able to allow us to move to another area where our business was suitable. We're not making the choice to have the zoning change. It's something that's being forced upon us. We would prefer that our use, which would be warehousing and distribution, is allowed in the UDO. I'm not familiar with all of the amendments that were done. That would be great. If it's not, we'd ask for some consideration for allowing some sort of financial incentive for us to be able to move so that you can develop the properties the way that you guys would like to. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. And our final is Bruce Larson.
Good evening. Bruce Larson, owner of the building at 385 to 395 East Potter Street. I would respectfully request the members of this committee to delay the consideration of this proposed UDO, as I believe was recommended by the CDC, to further provide time for a rewrite of some of the sections in the proposed UDO and appoint a steering committee, including some of the property owners who will be affected by the rezoning this UDO includes. I am sure there are some of the affected owners or their representatives who are more knowledgeable than myself and who could provide valuable recommendations as to a final draft of this possible law for the city of Wooddale. In the overall future of the city, what would another 6 months to a year, an addition of 10 to 20% of the time required to prepare this draft, in order to get this UDO to become more equitable and acceptable for all the stakeholders involved and still provide for the overall future vision for the city. I request this as an affected property owner and a concerned tax-paying member of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that wanted to speak that didn't fill out a card and still would like to? Okay, there being none, does the committee have any questions? Okay, there being none, we have a motion, we have a second. Mayor, please.
Just want to make sure, so the parking lot, there's a variance now, correct?
That is correct. One of the changes that are being
And
proposed.
administration also has 5%, right?
Yes, there's a text amendment that would allow a certain level of administrative variance. It's specifically laid out in the UDO, but I believe it is up to 5%.
Okay, and then,
Go ahead.
so the pools, I was a little fuzzy on reading through the 200 and some odd pages.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Can you explain?
That is correct. So our current definition of lot coverage includes any type of impervious surface, and above-ground pools used to be included in it, which would prohibit a number of people to actually install an above-ground pool because their lot would be over on lot coverage. That definition has been revised to exclude above-ground pools in the definition. So ultimately, that would be allowed for a lot, many more lots now.
Are you done? Alderman Messina.
It's a follow-up to that, so, because I've had a couple calls on that, and you, I think, know which ones. Those structures would not be included. So is there any requirement for water, for that water in the pools, like as far as rerouting, drainage? That's the
No,
word?
so ultimately, the whole permit would still have to go through a process. So all the other the bulk regulations, setbacks and things like that, that's something we would still look into, of course, yes.
Thanks.
Mayor, please.
So going back to the pool. So above ground is now not included as part of lot coverage. But what if I have somebody that comes in and puts a pool, above ground pool, 80% of their backyard, is that allowed?
So technically, in terms of lot coverage, yes, but we still have setbacks. So we would still look at separation between, let's say, the house and the building itself.
Okay.
There's also required setbacks for if there's underground utilities and any easements and things like that. So obviously, there would still be limitations.
Okay, and have another one?
Sure, go ahead.
So regarding the 20 acres, we're going down to 10 acres because, so if I have an existing building and I only have 8 acres, but I could build another 50,000 square feet, do I need to get the variance or am I allowed to build, expand my business?
So based on the definition, development would include addition. So that's something that would have to go through a process.
So, but if I have 50,000 square feet and I want to add 20,000 square feet and I have 6 or 7 acres, whatever. So I can do that addition as long as I meet the stormwater requirements and the other code issues, correct?
Exactly, yes, but some sort of a process may be required based on the regulations, yeah. So
Yep.
whether it could be a planned unit development or or a variance.
So wait, we need a variance? I'm a little, I just want to make sure that we're not, so I have the building, I own the property, I want to add 25,000 square feet. I have the room because I bought a bigger property. I hear the process, but I'm not hearing, yes, you can do it because it sounds like you have to go to a variance still.
Yes, oh, I'm sorry, by process, I mean a variance, I apologize, yes. Yeah. We verified the sort of the definition that's listed as a development, and building addition would trigger that. So any sort of existing structure improvements, if it's interior, that would not trigger the process, the zoning variation process. But if it's an addition to an existing building and it doesn't meet the size, then it would, whether it's a planned unit development process or a variance process, yes, it would be required.
Right, but again, so I'm a former business owner, I understand how this works. If I have a piece of property and I want to put 20,000, so I did, I added to my building. If we would have had this in place, we couldn't have expanded our building unless I go for a variance. I'm not changing the property. I don't know, Mr. Bond, you maybe can help me out here, but that doesn't sound too fair to the guy who owns the 8 acres or 6 acres. Just a question.
What specifically was the question? Is it fair?
No. Why do we need, if that person who has 6 or 7 acres wants to add square footage to his property, and he can, why do we have to go to variance?
And that's how it's written right now, is there's a requirement for a planned unit development or a certain size. So obviously, this is one of the policy questions.
Right, that's,
That could be, yeah, considered, yeah.
and maybe I'm just one, but, you know, I've had property for 20 years, so now my business is larger and I can't put 20,000 square feet. That doesn't sound right. Now, it's one thing if I want to start buying properties, then you should consolidate, and then you need the variance even if you don't get to 10,000, 10 acres, whatever. That's just my opinion.
Alderman Sorrentino.
You know, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm hearing a couple of the business owners, like this has been brought on like almost like a surprise. I was under the impression that we've had these talks for almost a couple of years now. Am I right, wrong? What's,
So I'll answer. The process has been going on for a couple of years. The engagement of the property owners have been going on, let's say, 60 to 45 days. And they're brought in at the end after kind of as the sausage is made and it's put out in the window, here's the sausage, do we like the sausage? And right now, we're trying to look at all the comments that were made and all the issues that were brought up and address those and try to add in the things that were deficient. I'll speak to for one, I'd like, if staff could, or city attorney, the motion that we presented, if that could get emailed out to, if we have everybody's email, get emailed out to the people. We're done at this time for comments. I apologize, but so that everybody understands the motion. But what we did is we listened to what everybody had to say, and we tried to incorporate as much as possible into the new ordinance and still achieve what we wanted to achieve. A lot of those things that were brought up made sense, and so therefore we brought them in. And there's still room for some change. I don't know if we sat here all night long debating one thing, I'm sure we probably wouldn't get it right either. I think it would be better to digest it. We can come back at the council meeting if there's some recommendations. It gives everybody time to talk to Gosha, go, what is the number? But we had to come up with something. Mr. Bond, you wanted to make a statement?
Yeah, I can make sure I'll get the city manager, the motion can be posted and get circulated to anyone here, providing an email address and also posted on the city's website. That can be done tomorrow.
Alderman Messina.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. If we could just
Yeah, we can go
I would-
through it for,
yeah.
if
I would just-
I'll read slower.
Can I just add one comment?
Sure, go ahead.
And that is representative of Ward 1, which most of your businesses fall in, right? I appreciate the due diligence of coming here. At the same time, I appreciate the due diligence going forward of our residents that live across the street from there and have been subjected to, all of that, right? So it's a fine balance, and I give kudos to staff, kudos to some of your representatives that have come out and worked with staff on some of these revisions. This is a committee meeting. None of this is final. We will have a city council approval next week, which will finalize. So I do give kudos to staff for incorporating a lot of these changes. We did hear you guys out. I wish many of you would be as vocal and reach out to me and work with us when I get complaints from residents. But it's a two-way street, so yes, I know, you were phenomenal. But yes, please, thank you for working with us, and I will pass it back to you.
Okay. So I'll run through, I mean, the motion was to approve the UDO, that the proposed permitted uses applicable to the proposed C3 district include the following additional permitted uses. 1, manufacturing limited. 2, office administrative and professional. 3, warehouse. 4, wholesale. 5, personal storage facility. 6, passenger motor vehicle repair. 7, automotive tire.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Passenger,
Motor vehicle repair.
I don't think that's defined in the new UDO.
Okay, again, we'll have time. I want to get this so that you can see it. You have time to send us a note with your,
You guys define motor vehicle repair facility and motor vehicle services. What did you call it, sir?
passenger motor vehicle repair. I called it, I believe, exactly what you called it, because it's from your
On
list.
14, put passenger on your list.
Next, automotive tire battery store, including installation. Next, recreational equipment sales, service, and rental. Next, commercial radio, microwave antenna, and cell towers. Personal wireless communication facilities. commercial trade schools, indoor athletic facility, product showroom, internet sales with warehouse, printing establishments. And that's on top of the ones that were already there. Some of those were already covered under the prior permitted uses, under different terms, contractors, yard contractor's office was inclusive of a couple of things that were on the list, also fell under that same definition. Next item was for special uses. We added towing service without on-site impoundment. And number 3, the right to continue a legal, non-conforming use or structure runs with the land and is transferable to subsequent property owners and lessees subject to the limitations in sections 17701, 17705 of the proposed UDO and other applicable discontinuance provisions of the proposed UDO. And then number 4, as we covered, was for the TIO, that the minimum development area for developments in the Thorndale Interchange Overlay District, TIO District, be changed from 20 acres to 10 acres with minimum development areas is subject to a request for variation through the PUD approval process. And that was the end of the motion. So, and staff or somebody will mail this out to you, so have the, so are there any other questions?
No, I'm happy you covered all that, and everyone's been aware of it.
Alderman Jacob?
Yeah, just want to thank the business owners for coming out here. Please make sure to get the information that we're going to provide. And if you have comments, please provide those comments or come to the next meeting to give those comments so that we could take that all into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, roll call.
Alderman Ames.
Yes.
Alderman Catalano.
Yes.
Alderman Currielli.
Yes.
Alderman Jacob.
Yes?
Alderman Messina.
Yes.
Alderman Shortino.
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski.
No.
Alderman Woods.
Yes. That passes. Next items to be considered at future meetings, rental housing code change in the summer. Is there anything anybody else would like to add? There being none, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a-
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
We got an extra one up here if you want it.